I'm calling today the 16th of December 2020 for a fraud investigation into Betfair in the United Kingdom and in Australia as a result of its early termination of a €1.85 billion betting pool on the outcome of the US presidential election. I believe there is now probable cause that there is a suspicion that there was an attempt and an ongoing attempt to defraud not only the investors in that pool, but also the shareholders of Betfair, who have been deprived of considerable commission profits as income due to the early termination of this bet by Betfair. I'm going to lay out the grounds in more detail later on in this video. First, and I'm also going to show you how to contact police in the United Kingdom and lodge a complaint and a request for a fraud investigation. But I'm also going to show you some background information on Betfair, where it came from, and some disreputable people who are involved with the company. Also, its connections to Scytl, the election vote machine company, which has been tied to allegations of vote fraud in the United States, and also connections to financial institutions and the Clintons, among others, by Betfair. Let's just take a look at where all of this starts. And it starts here, with connections that have now become infamous, if not famous, around the world, between companies called Smartmatic, Dominion, and Scytl, all involved in the vote machine business and all subject of allegations over the past month or so since the US election. This is Fintan Dunn on The Beautiful Truth, and you're very welcome. Thanks for joining me. Check out the video I did yesterday. If you haven't already, you'll find that in my back catalogue on YouTube, Fintan Dunn on YouTube. And you can also check me out and contact me through fintandunne.com. That's fintandunne.com. Back to the story. So, considering these links, let's just follow a chain of investigation looking into Scytl, one of the companies mentioned. Scytl, back in 2014, I'll read you from a report on Scytl.com, which reports that Scytl had a round of financing which got them $104 million of capital from new investors, including Vulcan Capital, SAP Ventures, Vi Capital, Adam Street Partners, and Industry Ventures. Vulcan Capital we're going to be taking a look at, and another investor, Balderton Capital, which is a shareholder in the company. Vulcan Capital, for start, is the multi-billion-dollar investment arm of Vulcan Inc., the company founded by Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist Paul G. Allen. And there is our first connection back to an individual called Bill Gates through Paul Allen, an investor, Paul Allen and his Vulcan group, in Betfair. Looking on further, Scytl recently closed back in 2010. This was $7.5 million funding round led by the aforementioned Balderton Capital. So Balderton Capital is a very interesting company because that election company, Scytl, who are involved in voting machines, was backed by Balderton, and Balderton are also the venture capital company behind Betfair. So Betfair and Scytl share a common investor, that investor being Balderton Capital. Let's move on. Balderton Capital is one of the largest venture capital funds worldwide, and it's based in the City of London. That's exactly where Betfair are based also. And there has been a very close relationship between the two. Betfair was founded a decade ago by Edward Ray, a JP Morgan trader, which gives us an interesting connection back to the financial markets, shall we say, in the United States. Now, Balderton invested in Betfair when the company launched back in 2000. It was a seed investor and primary investor in Balderton. So it's not just a question that Balderton put some money into Betfair in 2010. Balderton have been on board from the very beginning and are embedded, including having their own people as executives of Betfair. And it is Balderton which is an investor in Scytl, which is a voting machine company. And Betfair are running a book on the outcome of an election run on those voting machines. I'm beginning to establish, I hope, why I have these concerns about the need for a criminal fraud investigation by police in the UK and in Australia. Moving on. Balderton Capital was founded in the year 2000 as Benchmark Capital Europe. So founded in Europe, really one of their earliest moves in Europe would have been the Betfair and other ventures they've been involved in since 2000. So Benchmark Capital Europe, and Benchmark is a venture capital firm based in San Francisco that provides seed money to startups. Its most successful, notorious investment was in 1997, an investment of $6.7 million in eBay for 22% of the company. It also invested in Uber, by the way. So Benchmark Balderton is very well connected right back to Silicon Valley. Moving on. Tim Bunting, a partner at Balderton Capital, who was non-executive chairman of Betfair in 2006, said of him, so Tim Bunting, a partner at Balderton Capital, was a non-executive chairman of Betfair. As I say, Balderton isn't just investing in Betfair, it's running Betfair. And we just get some more detail on Tim Bunting. This is Tim Bunting, who joined Balderton as a general partner in 2007. He was previously a partner at Goldman Sachs, where he spent 18 years. So again, I'm linking you back to the financial centers in the United States and Goldman Sachs. Now, he was big in Goldman Sachs, global head of equity capital markets, vice chairman of Goldman Sachs International, and he started work with Balderton and its portfolio of companies in 2005. As I say, Balderton hands-on all the time. Let's look at somebody else now. Barry Maloney. Barry Maloney. We'll find out a little bit more here. Barry Maloney is a general partner with Balderton. Very good. And prior to joining Balderton Capital, Barry spent 5 years as a CEO of ESAT Digifone, Ireland's second largest GSM mobile operator. So he's involved in an Irish mobile phone company. So what? Well, Betfair is Paddy Power, and that's also an Irish company. So Barry Maloney and Balderton Capital have a heritage with ESAT Digifone, and you probably don't recognise the name ESAT Digifone, but you might recognise the principal who ran that company, founded that company, and steered it to global success, Dennis O'Brien of Digicel, who happens to be the biggest Irish donor to the Clinton Foundation, having handed over between $10 and $25 million to the Clinton Foundation. So now we see that an individual in Balderton has a heritage with Dennis O'Brien, who is very close to the Clintons. By the way, Dennis O'Brien's a very wealthy man. And of course, I'm making absolutely no allegations that Dennis O'Brien himself has been in any way involved in anything underhand in relation to these matters. I'm just pointing out the links between an individual who worked in one of his companies and Balderton and Betfair. Let's continue. Of course, famously in 2016, Donald Trump launched an attack on Hillary Clinton over her links to that very self-same Dennis O'Brien, whom he called a cell phone tycoon. Oh, Denny boy, one of the articles written about this connection, how the Clintons helped an Irish telecom tycoon make millions in earthquake-ravaged Haiti. You see, the cell phone business is international, and following on his success in Irish cell phone business, Denis O'Brien went international, and Haiti was one of his great successes. He teamed up with the Clintons there to help Haiti. I'm sure that was his only motivation, was to help out that country after its ravaging earthquake. And the Trump-Pence campaign indeed put out, and I'll give you a link in the description of this video to all of this material so you can check it out yourself, verify it all yourself, and then use it as source material in any criminal complaints you wish to make. And they say, follow the money, Denis O'Brien, another corrupt Clinton friend. Well, they're saying that he's corrupt. I'm not saying he's corrupt, although I do have to note that this is from the Irish Times, and there is a younger version of Denis O'Brien. And this little bio piece notes that the Moriarty Tribunal, which was a tribunal of investigation, essentially investigating into potential criminal matters, and a suspicion that Denis O'Brien had, not to put too fine a point on it, the allegation was that he had bribed a member of Parliament who was a minister involved in telecommunications, and that was the reason why he had secured a license for his company. And that tribunal, which sat over many years, investigated these matters of possible payments from O'Brien to Michael Lowry, who was the Member of Parliament involved. And eventually in 2011, the tribunal gave its findings that Lowry had interfered with the competition to the benefit of ESAT and O'Brien, who owned ESAT, and that O'Brien had sought to make payments to Lowry. The two, however, have insisted ever since that that tribunal finding is wrong. But that's just some of the background to this. So as a result of that, I have come to the conclusion that perhaps we need to speak to the fraud squad in the United Kingdom. And I'll just briefly show you how to go through that process. Let's just step through it. It's the City of London Police Economic Crime Department that may be responsible, but I hope they are. Betfair is headquartered in Hammersmith, but let's see. And they're a very accessible operation. There's Andy Fife, who's the Detective Chief Inspector of the Economic Crime Department, and he's on LinkedIn. And this is an accessible department. We also have contact details here for the Economic Crime Committee of the City of London Police Authority Board. So it's an issue they take very seriously, this issue of economic crime. And here is the City of London Police page on LinkedIn, which explains about the City of London Police. And right here we have their website, and on it very visibly you will find a section for fraud, and you can report fraud. And it's quite straightforward to do so. You'll find yourself in an online form system. But I really would recommend actionfraud.police.uk as the best way to go about this if you'd like to report this issue of fraud. And there is, you can sign up and you can create an account there again at actionfraud.police.uk. And hopefully our Australian friends will be able to help us out with issues of how to do the same kind of actions down in Australia. So what will you be saying to them when you speak with them? If you are someone who has been backing Trump and is now disappointed that that book has been closed so early by Betfair in advance of a certain outcome to that election, well, you'll be saying the sort of thing that I'm saying to you, that my concerns are, maybe you'll share these concerns, is that because of this connection between the investment firm and personnel involved with Balderton and Betfair and Scytl, that it's quite possible that some individuals who may not be directly employed by Betfair, but may have corporate responsibility in Betfair, may also have inside information, either about ongoing election results, for example, or inside connection to allegations of systematic vote fraud and a conspiracy to commit vote fraud in the United States presidential election because of the connections. So it's something that will be a concern. And the other concern is that so many people were betting on Trump and now so disappointed. And we've got a question over why that book was closed so early. This is where the interests of the shareholders of Betfair come in, because the commissions are considerable, 5% of the pool, and the pool was 1 billion at the time of the election and 1.85 billion euro at the time it was summarily suspended and the election was declared for Biden. So I think that had this thing been allowed to run and not been closed down, that there might well, by the time an outcome was actually achieved, and in the light of increasing success by the Trump campaign with mounting not just their own legal actions now, but securing subpoenas by states in the United States, seizing, securing equipment which they suspect may be involved in vote fraud, that there's proximate cause to consider that there is vote fraud operation perhaps underway, and that individuals connected to that might perhaps be on the other side of those bets. So every time someone who was enthusiastically and perhaps with mature consideration thinking that 20 to 1 or 23 to 1 was quite a good price to get for Trump, there would be somebody on the other side of that bet who's offering 23 to 1 on. Someone who must be fairly certain that Donald Trump will not win. It's quite a wager to lay, risking 23 to make 1. But certainty was possibly there, and so the concern is that there might be a large number, or even a small number, of well-heeled individuals who have placed money on the other side of those bets. And also that, you see, if in fact this vote fraud operation began to fail, its first point of failure would have been on the night of the election when counting had to be suspended in order for the vote tallies to meet the required margin to give Joe Biden victory. And the reason for that would have been an unexpected and unanticipated huge surge in support for Donald Trump, which overwhelmed the alleged conspirators and forced them into this obvious action, which has caused so much subsequent suspicion. So at that point, individuals who might have been on the other side of these Trump bets prior to the election night might have become quite concerned that perhaps they were going to lose their money after all. And as things went on and more money came in, there was, I'm sure, on the part of Betfair, on the part of those who had laid those bets in favor of Biden and against Trump, that things were okay. But of course, an exit might have to be found. Suppose Trump was to actually win. Well, the only exit available would be the exit we've just seen, which was to declare the result for Biden, close the market, and hope to walk away with the money. Because the risk of allowing the bet to continue would be that it might indeed be lost, causing a considerable loss to these insiders who would have participated in the fraud scheme. So that is always a danger where you have a large number of what you would call consumer betting interest from small and medium-sized betting fraternity, particularly the Trump enthusiasts, coming up against people who are resourced to lay 23 to 1 on, who have the funds in order to be able to make that kind of a bet. It's a lot of capital to deploy. So there is always a risk in such a market where there's a disproportion between perhaps the wealth of those who are laying those bets and the relative wealth of those who are putting them on, that there might indeed be conspiracy among those individuals, and that Betfair's strange move could perhaps be explained by a move to protect those insider investors who had been in the pool all along and perhaps even participated in the growing pool as it grew, and that the closure was not for any commercial reasons, but was for the specific reasons of defrauding those who had participated in the market. That's the most egregious version of the complaint you could make, alleging a cognizant criminal conspiracy. The other allegations that you might make is that Betfair has engaged in deceptive practice in the conduct of this election, and that the purpose of that deceptive practice was to advance some or all aspects of what I've just laid out. I'm not saying everything I've laid out can be proven, or that there is currently sufficient facts to sustain what I've laid out. But it is a grand schema, and some or all of that schema may be in operation. But there's no point in the police in the United Kingdom or down in Australia in looking into this on a small scale. We must outline for them the potential grand scale, which would involve this insider knowledge through Scytl, through Balderton, through Betfair, and through those investors who won big when this market was closed in their favour in recent days. So you have the information there now, certainly on the London end of that, so that you can contact the British police at actionfraud.police.uk. And they have, as I say, you can log in and create an account there. And the benefits of that is that you can track progress of your report, and you can have a continuing and ongoing relationship with the complaint which you put in. Other key places for you to go is the UK Trump Punters Betfair class action page on Facebook, and the corresponding page down in Australia, Trump Punters Betfair class action, AUNZ. And guys, if any of you are members down there, try and get them to let me in. I know I'm not in Australia or New Zealand, but God it, damn it, I'm in Ireland, UK, and we're all in the one pool here. So I've been honestly answering, no, I'm not in AU, and they're probably just tossing my application. Maybe you guys could get me in there. And of course, you should also check out Marina Jeffrey and her videos and stuff. And Marina is tracking this down there, and she's probably going to wake up to this soon because it's going to be early Aussie time. So that's it really for this edition. I could go on more. There's so much more. I've been looking into so much more, but I just wanted to get that one out there. It's time to demand a criminal investigation. We would like to see these people on the other side of these bets. We'd like to see the fraud squads look at that pool, look at who the major players in that pool are, and determine if there are any potential conflicts of interest. And also look at the behaviour of Betfair over the course of all this. All right, that's it for this edition. I will be back with more soon. But in the meantime, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting. Thanks for joining me, folks.